Let's just talk about some of the rumours and those that we need to shift on, Alfie. It's been an interesting week with Lianco. At the time of recording this, we think he's on his way back, and he's going to be back in training on Monday. That may obviously develop during the week. What on earth went on there? I don't think I've ever heard of a player leaving and then something breaking down at the last minute like that.
Yeah, I don't know. From what it sounds like, well, from what the club have told us, and we always have to be careful because they want what they want to be out, of course. But it sounds like they got over there, everything was agreed, and then Besiktas changed the goalpost at the final few moments, and they obviously pulled out the deal as a result, whether just because it's a disrespectful thing to do. But they also signed Marty, didn't they, from who obviously left Leicester on a free transfer. So I'm wondering if they sort of had two options. They got a Marty in and thought, right, well, we don't actually want to pay the full whack for Lianco now because we don't necessarily need him, and they tried to change it. But yeah, he'll be back. But I mean, obviously, it's hard to judge Lianco immediately, but I'm not convinced that he's going to be the perfect man for Russell Martin in this system. I think that probably a lot of people will share that opinion as well. There's a few others that I would like to see gone, though, to be honest with you. I mean, I think Mohamed Salah is a good deal for 15 million. I think the club can make profit.
That's great money. Yeah. If that price is accurate, that's
a year left on his contract as well. And
did they say he was injured at the weekend again? Because we had all that stuff last year about whether he was injured or not. And then obviously yesterday, I think they said that he didn't train or he picked up a niggle in training. And then lo and behold, all this stuff comes out about Fulham. And I'm just none of
it's so disingenuous, and it's kind of pretty insulting to the fan base, really, to peddle that sort of nonsense when just say the guy's being a dick. Why not?
I mean, but why would they take him? If that was the case, why would they take him to Turkey? That's what I think. Unless it's something that's developed in the last couple of days.
Trying to sell him there.
Yeah, maybe it is.
Turkey's our equivalent of the proper clubs sell players to Saudi Arabia. We can't do that. So not good enough. So we have to go to Turkey instead.
So we think Lianco is probably going to go, and that's not a great sign, is it? When they sanction your move and you've then got to come back, you pretty much know that your days are going to be numbered. Salazar to Fulham, you think that's good value for 15 million?
I think it could be, and obviously we don't know about everyone else. I mean, I'm seeing Jay Adams linked to a couple of Premier League clubs, Bournemouth, and was it Forest as well, or someone else? Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that, but I think if you were to make some money on Che as well, and that did allow to bring in another striker, I probably wouldn't be hugely against it. I like Che as a person. I think he's a decent hold-up striker, but hasn't really hit the ground running in pre-season. Not that you'd be expected to in 3 games, but you know what I mean? I feel confident replacing him.
Is he another one, Glenn, that correct me if I'm wrong, did he not say he wanted to stick around and was hoping to get the team back, but then at the same time he's into the last year of his contract and presumably hasn't signed another one?
I kind of change my mind on Che Adams every time I think about it, to be honest. I mean, I said a couple of weeks ago that I would tell him he's not going because he's still really our best striker. I would, for the sake of between probably 12, 13 million that we get for him with a year left on his contract, I'd be tempted to say, no, you stay, score some goals and keep us up. And if we go up, then you either sign a new contract or you go with our blessing. So that was what I was thinking a couple of weeks ago. But then when I was getting ready for this, I was kind of listing players who I feel like either let us down, like the ones I mentioned earlier, or the ones who don't really want to be here. And he comes into that sort of second category. He's obviously waiting for the last minute. I mean, I'm sure if he doesn't get a move, he'll get his head down and get on with it for the last year or so. But I don't know how high his wages would be. How that's another thing. How keen are the club going to be to get certain players off the wage bill? I mean, I'm sure Alex McCarthy will be the number one they'd like to get rid of because A, he doesn't contribute and B, he's on decent wedge. And this is what I think ultimately Ward-Prowse will go, because getting close to the end of the transfer window, I'm sure we're going to drop the fee a little bit to try and get 100 grand a week or whatever it is off of the wage bill. So
I've heard a rumor we've not enforced the relegation wage reduction clause for him and him only.
I wonder if that's gone down in the squad.
Yeah, I don't know whether that's true or not, but I mean it kind of makes sense if you want your if you've got even vague designs on your captain and sort of talisman staying, then
yeah.
I mean, all the talk of transfers for him has gone pretty quiet. I mean, basically the two options seem to be Fulham and West Ham, and West Ham are kind of messing around with sort of low ball prices in the press when everybody knows they've got £105 million to spend. So and actually, I mean, Fulham's the one that probably makes sense because he wouldn't have to uproot his family at all. He'd probably be able to stay where he is and just commute to Motspur Park for their training ground. Whereas West Ham are all the way over in Chingford, I think, in Essex, aren't they? Which is a bit of a trek for him. But yeah, all the other ones that we thought might be sort of on the cards have gone very quiet. So it might just be a case that actually there's not enough interest.
I mean, the buyback clauses seem to be keeping you busy, Alfie, explaining how all that works and what the different connotations are to people that can't quite get their heads around it. But it looks like that's a pretty shrewd bit of business in terms of Tino and Lavia, because if someone wants to buy those players in this window, they're going to have to stump up like best part of 50 million quid, aren't they? Or it's not good business for us because of those potential deals we've got down the line in 12 months' time.
Yeah, it's ideal, isn't it? And that is the only way you get those players in the first place as well. So even if it wasn't a good situation for Southampton, tough luck. If you want the best academy players, that's how you got to do it. I imagine it's probably the same with Shea Charles as well. I don't know for a fact, but I'm sure it almost certainly is. Yeah, the Livramento was interesting though, because I was told that pre-injury Chelsea were very, very interested in doing that buyback clause, which would have been this summer. And obviously that's probably been put on ice. And like you say, I think it's Jacob's reporting on the sliding sell-on fee. It's a bit more of an interesting one. Like the more you sell the player for, the higher percentage you have to give to Chelsea, meaning that Southampton basically have to sell Livramento for 40 million plus, otherwise they don't even get a decent chunk of it. So, yeah, I mean, as long as the player's happy to stay, then it works a treat. The one with Romeo Lavia, though, is, I mean, I'd be very surprised if Romeo Lavia was still here come September. I'd be less surprised if Livramento was still. I've got a little bit of hope Livramento will still be here, to be honest, if Newcastle aren't going to stump up the fee. But Lavia is somebody who, I mean, I can't imagine he'd still be here. You'd happily take the 40, 50, and he'd go with all of our blessing, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Another thing, though, I mean, you got with Tino and Lavia, you can't imagine that wages-wise they're particularly high earners. So where's the advantage in taking a low ball fee, regardless of the buyback clauses and all that stuff? I mean, with Lavia, I think there'll be more than one club interested. So that will end up getting done at the sort of 45, 50 million pound level. But you know, Livramento, I mean, Newcastle are hilarious, aren't they? I mean, you know, the richest club in the world, and now they want to lowball everybody because oh look, we've got FFP issues. I mean, yeah, deal with it.
It's interesting. Do you remember what Martin Semmens said a couple of years ago in one of the fans forums, where he said that if you don't let Livramento go to Liverpool, for example, then you don't get the next one. Obviously, Martin Semmens is no longer at the club, but I think the point is that if players see that you're not going to sell them when they get their deserved step up, then they won't. You know, people like Shea Charles won't join. So, is that something that you worry about at all as supporters? You think that players in the future will be put off by coming if they're being held to ransom, so to speak?
I think a lot depends on the player, doesn't it? A lot depends on the attitude of the player. I mean, we legendarily tried to keep Van Dijk, didn't we? And he just down tools basically. Whereas if we did say to Ward-Prowse or Livramento, no, you're staying this season, I don't think either of those would particularly be a problem. Would it affect players, you know, young players who play for other clubs? To be honest, I don't really think so, because they'd be about getting game time, which they would get for a season, 2 seasons, whatever. Yeah. You get your move eventually. You know, it's if you're good enough, you get your move eventually. But yeah, I mean, these big clubs, it's a bit like I said about Bella-Kotchap. They've got to stop pretending to be this big tough thing and actually put some money on the table, and then happy days. If they stick 45 million down for Tino, they'll probably get him. But if they mess around offering 20, 25, they're, you know, tough.
So as fans, it would be managing our expectations, like Shea Charles, for example, coming in and then knowing from the offset that you're going to have him for 2 really good seasons, and then he's going to go. And in your head, it's always going to be 2 seasons, and then they're off. And that's kind of the model at the moment, which I don't know.
Pretty much, unless they're not quite good enough, and then you've got them for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
you've stuck with them.
Well, so I suppose the ultimate aim is finishing 8th at this point, isn't it? It's finishing 8th in the Premier League, obviously not in the Championship, in 3 or 4 years' time, 5 years' time, and then obviously in Europe, that's when you can start to, I suppose, grow like Aston Villa have done this season. But that's a long way away.
We've not even mentioned Sulemana and Tall Paul. They weren't in the squad yesterday, were they? So I'm assuming it looks like they might be off, and you're not going to shed any tears over that, Glenn.
Well, I've said all along, I feel sorry for Tall. You know, like I said earlier on, we got Adam Armstrong. We'd never really played to his strengths, putting him in behind defences and letting him run in on goal. We've never really set up the team to play that way. Tall is an absolute classic. You know, we've signed a 6'7" guy and don't put the ball in the air to him. It's just ridiculous. If you've got a player who's incredibly limited, the only way you're going to get anything out of him is to play to his one strength. And we haven't done that. So I feel a bit sorry for the guy in the football sense. But at the end of the day, he's probably tripled his salary to come over here and sit watching the team lose, scoring no goals with Ruben Sellers as manager. So, you know, he'll get a move. There seem to be German clubs sniffing around, don't there? So I think we'll probably end up paying a portion of his wages for the duration of his contract.
It just underlines how poor that January transfer window was, doesn't it? And because Orsic has already gone, obviously, and not good.
Desperation, wasn't it?
It was desperate,
yeah, absolutely.